Hello and welcome to Beyond the Glass, the window cleaning podcast. This is going to be episode 6. I've been wondering all week, what the hell am I going to talk about? And a few times what kept popping in my head was, why not talk about something relevant? It was at the time anyway, which is weather. So in this podcast, I'll go over what I do in certain weather conditions and how it drives me or stops me from working for window cleaning anyway. It's obviously a big thing, the weather in the UK. Most people talk about it all the time. Let's face it, January wasn't brilliant. And so far this month in February, it hasn't been the best neither. It is that sort of time of year. And then later on, we're going to go through storms here and there that'll pass. And then summertime, it's going to be the opposite, too hot. And we're all going to moan about it being too hot. That's how it is in the UK here anyway. Don't know what it's like for you guys out in the US, because you have some really extremes weather and temperature, and it's a big country, so certain parts are affected differently to others. But it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. Put them in all the comments below or in the show notes and all that kind of stuff if you're listening to it on iTunes and Spotify and that. So first thing I'll probably talk about is, so far this month, February, I've lost 2 days of work where I couldn't work, and that was due to the weather, because we had some really high winds, and with it, on one day, I think there was rain, so I would have got absolutely drenched as well. So what I'll go through first then is winds. What I tend to do is, I'm always looking on the weather app anyway, the Apple one, because I find it's fairly accurate for me anyway. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what channel you go on, what forecast, they're all different. So a lot of them are wrong anyway. And what it does on the day is different to what's forecast sometimes. So you just get up and then you have to look out the window, make a decision, and then do I go for it or not? So I'll go through if it's windy, like I said before, probably. For me, if it gets gusts up to 30 miles an hour, that gets my attention. I start thinking that's my point where I think it's not worth me going out working. Because I'm rural round here, a lot of the places are open to the fields, so we get the full force of the wind. What I worry about is that I'm going to clean the customers' windows, charge them some money, and then what's going to happen is by tomorrow, it's all going to be dry and spotty, because a load of grit has been blown all over the windows. And especially while they're wet and still drying, it's just going to mess up them drying off. And it's not going to be what I tell them it'll be, which is spot free. And plus, some of the windows that I do, Velux windows, I've got a couple of, I think they're Georgian houses. They're Admiralty building ones. Those who watch me channel probably see me cleaning them. They're monsters. And I'm using a 35-foot pole, and in high winds, that can be really, really difficult to clean at that sort of height. So that's another reason why I'll say no. But it is mainly down to how I feel for the customer. The last thing I want to do is go round re-cleaning loads of windows when maybe I'd be better off calling it a day that day, chalk it off that I've lost a day's work, and then get on with something else that's more productive. There's always stuff you have to get on with. Fiddling around with kit and equipment, the van, or your bookkeeping, there's always something you need to go and do. However, I don't, when it gets to 30 miles an hour gusts, just say it's a full stop no. What I'll do is look out the window. I look at what the app is telling me that the gusts are supposed to be doing this minute, and I try and see if it's accurate or not. If it's accurate to what it's saying, let's just say around 10 o'clock, it's going to go up to 35, 40 miles an hour, then the chances are at 10 o'clock, it's going to be 35, 40 miles an hour. So therefore, it's not worth me going out cleaning, take the day off. So for the first hour of the day between 8 and 9 a.m., that's where I make a decision about the wind. And if by 9 o'clock I'm indecisive, I'll just say no, and then let all my customers know that I won't be around that day due to the high winds. I find that's better than going out, trying to clean a few windows, and then deciding around 10 o'clock that you can't. And then I feel sorry for the people that I've cleaned, and I've wasted 2 hours of my day that I could have been doing into something else that's more productive. Now, if it's 30 miles an hour on the dot, I'll still go out and work. But there are little caveats that I come into here, because everything's not hard and fast straight lines. You've got to blur them sometimes. So let's just say it is light rain. Obviously, in the high winds, that's not too good. But in my favour, all the dust and the grit is being kept down on the ground because it's damp. If it was a hot, dry day during the summer, I'm more leaning towards a no, because all that dust is going to get flung up in the air and land on all the wet windows, contaminate the pure water, and it's going to dry spotty on the glass, and the customers aren't going to be happy. and it'd be a waste of my time. However, let's say it's a damp day, I will then lean towards a yes. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if the gusts start to get up to around 35 miles an hour, I'll then start, even if it's a damp day, leaning towards a no. Now, the other thing is, it's all right saying gusts get up to 35, 40 miles an hour, but if you're going to get 2 gusts within that working day period that are actually there, then it's not worth cancelling a day's work, is it? So that's why I look out there using the app, try and see what it's telling me it's doing now, and I try and assess how often these strong gusts of wind are. If it's a lot of them within a few minutes' time, then it's a no. If there's only a few gusts per hour that reach that kind of speed limit, then I lean towards a yes. So that's basically how I judge the wind using the app and whether I should go out window cleaning or not, and try and make a decision early enough in the day. Because as you probably all know, those that follow me, when I book a day's work, it's pretty much all a day's work. It's not where I'll be finished by 3. So it's pointless me doing half a day and then doing half a day the following day. So I might as well just take that day off, like I said, and then turn round into something productive in terms of running the business that I don't normally get time to go and do. Now, also mixed in with the high winds is if we've got some moderate rain in 30 plus miles per hour, that moderate will then start to feel like heavy rain. And if it's going to be like that all day, then I'll start leaning towards a no as well. But the overriding factor at the end of the day is the money in the bank. And it's horrible here in the UK when you get a storm like that, that's for lasting for 3, 4, 5 days. That's then a week's worth of work. And that starts to become, there's no way you can turn that down. So you might find you're going to have to go out and do half days, do what you can and sort of like nurse your way through that week. But yeah, it's a hard one. That one all depends basically what my bank balance says. If I can afford it, I'll sit it out. If not, I've got to try and do something or bring some kind of money in through that week anyway, at least. So that's pretty much me really with the wind. And then, like I said, going further on that with the weather, you got the rain. So in the UK, it rains a lot. You get showers, they're fine because they come and go. But when it's torrential rain for nearly all day, I tend to say no, because we're going to get absolutely soaked through to the skin because you're out there 20, 30 minutes per clean, say. Then you're climbing in and out your van. I've now got a nice van. So the last thing I want to do is get the seats all mouldy, soaking wet and stuff like that. And it is just miserable to work in. Plus, half the customers don't want you out in there. It's not necessarily because they don't want the windows clean. They just don't want you getting soaking wet and cold. And some of them as well don't like you clean the windows in that sort of weather and when it's peeing it down that heavy. So they're not expecting you to come round anyway. So again, on days like that, I try and make that within the first hour decision, yes or no. And again, at the end of the day, if I'm super skint, which I was after having to sort out my getting my new van after my old van broke down, then I was tending to go out and work in it actually. But this year I'm going to try and do more work in these conditions where I normally err on the side of caution and see what I can get away with. But if it's torrential rain, stupidly high winds, then the answer is no, it's not worth it. And if you look ahead on your weather app, when it's a completely wet week and you know the weather's going to be bad, if you've got lots of gutters works kind of lined up, sometimes it's worth not doing the windows, but doing all these gutter jobs. At least something's getting done in the conditions where you maybe not go out cleaning the windows. Obviously, when the gust of winds are stupidly high, I'm not really going to be cleaning gutters. But if the winds aren't too bad for the gust, it's bad enough for windows, for example, and in the summer, maybe cleaning out the gutters with a gutter vac will be a better option. So that's things you've got up your sleeve. Some of you might have indoor work where you could plan ahead and then do all the indoor work maybe. And I'm sure most people, if you say sorry for late notice, but it's due to the weather outside, I can get on with stuff inside. But I don't have tons of work that is inside. Most of my work is completely outside. So that's me done on that one. And plus, if it's torrential rain, it's probably not an ideal time to clear out the gutters as well with all the water and stuff in there, because you're going to just be constantly hoovering it up and filling up your gutter vac. So torrential rain's probably a no-no for your gutters. If it's like moderate rain, where you know maybe a lot of people are going to say on that particular day, for example, don't come around clean your windows, maybe you could do the gutters, something like that. But one thing you've got to be wary of when using a gutter vac is obviously electricity. For me, because I use a 25-meter extension reel, I've got like a big yellow plastic builder's tub, bucket, whatever you want to call it. I put that over the top to give it protection from the rain. And then obviously you've got your generator as well to think about. So you've got to think about the safety side of that as well and take it all into account. Or you could have jobs where it's not necessarily windows, but it could be fascia, soffits and gutters. So you can clean the outside of them as long as it's not too windy. But in the really bad rainy days, that'll be a help because everything's had a good soak. So it's going to be easier to scrub and get off all the green algae and all that a lot easier. So that's going in your favour. And then what this does mean is if you get these jobs out of the way, when the weather breaks and it's nice, you're just constantly concentrating then on your windows and it's easier to manage that way. And again, trying to get something in on the days where you potentially not getting anything is going to be better in the long run. But it all depends what you've got lined up or work that's in the pipeline. And the other thing is when you tell a customer you can do a fascia, soffits and gutters, say tomorrow, because the weather's bad, you can't do your windows, for example, they still need a bit of notice there because them jobs tend to be obviously a lot more than just cleaning someone's windows. And not everyone has that sort of money in their back pocket. At least when you've done the quote, people can see the money, say, yeah, can you book me in? You've set the date, they've put the money aside, for example. But you could, I suppose, say you'll clean it, but just pay us on the planned date when you thought we're coming round, for example, because that's what they're budgeted for. That's your way of dealing with things at the end of the day. It's up to you. It's your business, isn't it? But it's doing something. And then, of course, it's when the weather's in the minuses, like -4 and there's a load of ice outside. Now, having a hot water system would be a dream for me, but it also shows me the expense of A, buying it and B, running it. But sometimes, even though you've got one of those, if it's -4 and all the roads are covered in ice, that sort of thing, even having a hot water system is not going to save the day. Well, it's going to stop your stuff freezing in your van. What I mean is it's probably a stupid idea to go out to work because if it's dangerous to drive, I wouldn't even go out trying to clean windows. You don't want to slip and have an accident at a customer's house and then you're worrying about your water coming off the windows on pavements, especially on the front and back doors, and then that becoming a slip hazard for your customers. Now, there's ways to negate that. You can always do the doors by hand. For example, some people use a bit of rock salt, but I think you've got to be careful with that because it can create other problems. And I don't know legally where you stand with that, but there are ways you can get around this, I suppose. But then if it's that cold outside as well, you can have the problems with your kit just freezing up, water freezing up coming out your jets or your rinse bars on your brushes, water freezing on the glass, and the customer just feeling sorry for you and saying, I'd rather you just go home. So yeah, hot water system has obviously got its good bits. It's going to help you clean fascia, soffits and gutters, conservatory roofs, first cleans on windows without having to use chemicals. It's going to be quicker during the year full stop anyway, because it's going to be easier to clean the windows with warm water than cold water. And then obviously it's plus point in the colder weather, it's less likely to freeze up. But it does get to a certain point where it's that cold outside with the wind, the ice is settling on the ground. It's just not worth going out window cleaning, basically. There's nothing you can do with it and you just got to sit it out. Unfortunately, these sort of like bad weathers always happen when it's a bad time of year as well. Like I say, the winter months, the days are shorter, everyone's skint, we're skint, but you need the money coming in. So it just goes to show as well in the summer, when the weather's good, you've got to go out and get as much in as you can to build up the pot to cover you for these bits where we get caught out, particularly in the winter due to the weather. Then you've got the other extreme from all the cold and the wet is when it's hot, dry and sunny conditions. Working in the sun all the time, you need to take precautions. I mean, in my first year, I think it was, or it could have been my second year, I'm not sure. Could have been the second year because obviously I'm busier. What I was finding is I was driving the van along and then all of a sudden my eyes would just absolutely sting. They'd sting that much that I couldn't keep my eyes open and I was having to squeeze them shut, which is obviously not a good thing to do when you're driving. So I do the best I can to find somewhere to pull over and then I'll just have to keep my eyes shut for ages until that phase passed, then carry on. And it was really bugging me. So I wonder if there's a problem with my eyes. I did go around and speak to a doctor about it and what they told me, it's called dry eye. And I explained to him my job, saying I've just not long been a window cleaner, and obviously it's the summertime. I'm looking up. I'm not just getting the sun going in my eyes, but if the sun's behind me, I'm getting the glare off the glass going into my eyes. Plus, if there's a house with snow white like render on it, it just seems to glow. And the frames as well, the white UPVC just feels like it's glowing and hurts my eyes. And he said, that's it. It's you looking up, doing something different. And obviously, I suppose with the wind as well, your eyes drying out and it's that dry that it's stinging. So your body's trying to get you to squeeze your eyes to get it all wet again, I suppose. So I got some eye drops for that and that cured that. But then it made me realize you need to wear sunglasses. And obviously you're going to get used to it over time anyway. So wearing sunglasses in the summer is a must to combat this, especially when you're getting the glare from all the frames, the glass and people's render as well. And obviously for driving. Now, because I wear prescription glasses, I had to get some prescription glasses that were tinted like sunglasses. That's what I went and got. I know you can get reactive lenses and all that kind of stuff as well, but I think it depends what the problem is with your eyes, because some are a bit saying you can't have it, which the opticians I originally was with said you can't, but I'm with a new one. They said you can, but I've gone and got tinted ones again. There was a bit of a mix up. So maybe next time I'll get some reactive ones. I do find as well in the winter sometimes that you need sunglasses because you're getting the low level sunlight. So it's closer to the horizon and it's more in your eyes. Plus with all the roads being wet, you're getting the glare of the wet roads coming up into your face, makes it hard to see. So it seems silly. It's what I said to my son. We're driving along wearing a pair of sunglasses in the winter, and then I've got to take my sunglasses off to put my glasses on to clean the windows and then put my sunglasses back on to drive to the next job. So again, I found out that way. So that's the weather affecting me there, but it's not necessarily stopping me working, is it? But the heat, that can get to you. Got to make sure you've got plenty of water to drink there. You certainly drink a lot more water during the summer than you do in the winter. So you're working and the conditions are hot, you're sweating more, you need more water. So you need regular water breaks, really. And the other thing is when you're working out in the summer, you're getting into your van, which can feel like a greenhouse because there's glass all in the cab of your van as well. At least with my new van I've got now, it's got aircon, whereas my old van didn't, so we had to undo the windows. But you could be somewhere you need to have everything secure, so it's going to be like a greenhouse when you initially get into it. So again, wearing something like a hat to help protect you from the sun as well, especially when you become an old bugger like me. And possibly some of you might be quite fair-skinned and you're going to have to use sun cream to protect you, or sun factor, whatever you want. Something strong to protect you from the sun. But luckily for me, I tan quite well, so I don't get that problem. But yeah, you've got to look after yourself in the hot weather just as much as you do in the cold, wet weather with your waterproof gear and warm kit. In the summer, you're going to have to wear like your T-shirts. Shorts are absolutely lovely, and I think everyone's happy wearing shorts, aren't they? It gets a bit depressing when the winter comes and you can't wear them and you're just looking forward to getting your shorts out again. But also your footwear so you don't overheat. But what I do find as well is with the winter, the windows, for me anyway, I find a lot less work to clean because they're relatively clean before I even get there. And that's due to the less sunlight. That's due to in the winter, you haven't got all the bugs and young birds flying around, messing on the windows. You haven't got any pollen, which is what all the problems you get during the summer, and then the sun baking it on. And plus, because we get regular rain, it's like they're getting an extra rinse with pure water between cleans. And the spiders, it gets to a certain point where they disappear for a bit. So everything seems to be a lot quicker, which is a big help when you've got the shorter daylight. But when the summer hits, you've got the reverse of the problems, like we just said about young birds. When they get flying, they're messing all over the windows. Then the next batch come along and do the same thing. It's all baked on there by the sun. You've got pollen from insects. You might have people as well that water all the flower beds with a hose and it's leaving hard water stains on the windows. They haven't worked that one out yet, and then that's your problem. But Ungle Rub Out comes in handy there as a godsend for that. And then because of all the flowers near there as well, you tend to find them sort of windows have a lot more pollen on them than anywhere else. And it's hard to get the upstairs windows pollen off the best you can. But again, the hot water system, I suppose, will get through that a lot easier than cold water anyway, that's for sure. So you've got all these problems that come within the summer as well. So the winters are taking longer. And the other thing I find in the summers, especially those who are retired, well, they're going to be out in the garden, aren't they? Getting stuff done. You come along, so you end up having chats. So you slow down a bit because of the heat, and you're also slowing down because there's more people to chat to, which I don't mind. It's part of the job. And you've got the longer light, so the pressure's off you a bit. Whereas in the winter, people hide out the way, and it helps you out with the less light you've got during the day as well. Swings and roundabouts, pros and cons to everything, and the weather affects us. As long as I can get out working, I don't care what the weather is, to be honest. But it's when I can't work due to weather that does really get me down. And your customers, I find during the winter, are quite down. Like now, it's February, and you can see people are fed up with the weather because a lot of them are going through things. And unfortunately, in January, you seem to find you lose a lot of your customers through passing away. And unfortunately, the other half that's left as well, they're down, suffering with that. And then they want to keep busy, but they look outside and they can't go out in the garden because it's soaking wet. They just cannot get on with stuff. So they're just really wanting the warm weather to get in so they can get out in the garden, get busy and adjust to life and get their mind busy. So they're not thinking all the time and dwelling on things. So people tend to be a bit down as well, I find, as well as us window cleaners, because we just want the better weather to get here and get cracking, really. February's been not too bad. Like I said, I've lost 2 days through work, and that was high winds and rain, which isn't bad, really. But February being a short month, 2 days' work can feel like 4 days' work you've lost, if you get what I mean. So that's kind of hit me. But then you can work Saturdays, I suppose, to try and get them back. But I've been doing that anyway due to the inconvenience of my van breaking down and having to get a new one. Interestingly enough, Matthew was just telling me reportedly we've got a heat wave coming this Wednesday where I live in Cambridgeshire. So that'll be totally different to what we're used to, wouldn't it? Hopefully it'll just give us a glimpse of what summer's going to bring anyway. And everyone will cheer up for a bit. But yeah, the weather's been not too good this week. However, I've managed to work without losing days' work, but I have found I've had a few skips this month again. Can't remember how many skips in total, but we've lost over 450 towards £500, not quite £500 worth of work though, missed in skips, just purely because of the weather, I guess, and people still being a bit skint after Christmas, really. Which is another thing that's going against me. So hopefully in the summer there you find less skips. But what we find August time, that tends to be another month where it's difficult because a lot of families going away on holiday, for example, so everywhere's locked up and they just say, can you miss the windows this time? Or again, people tend to have building work going on because it's the time to do it. And then you tend to find you have to skip windows a few times there until the building work's finished. But that's life, isn't it? So you could argue then that the hot weather, some of the problems that brings with you is a lot of building work gets carried out because that's the time to do it. They can't do it in the winter. You probably get affected by that here and there. However, it's quite minimal really, isn't it? And then I suppose the other thing is in the summer, you've got a lot of people going out, having gardeners coming round, and you tend to be cleaning the windows when someone else is there doing their other work. But luckily, I always go and speak to someone saying, is my van going to be anywhere? If I park here, get my hose round this way, is it going to mess what you're doing? Because they tend to be there longer than me anyway. And you kind of work around each other anyway, don't you? Or sometimes I say, what time you finish? Because I can come back towards the end of the day when you're finished. If it's, for example, not worth me cleaning the windows and then there's a workman there going to be throwing dirt and dust on it, can sort of arrange to work around that way. That's another good thing of having work all centralised in one area. It's easy to manage that. But yeah, the weather brings lots of things with it, really, doesn't it? And like I said, your customers cheer up in the better weather. And unfortunately, in the winter, especially when people lose people, they just want to get outside, and you can see they can't. They can't even go out and do something. They're trapped indoors and dwelling on things. But like I said, when I hit a day where I can't work because of the weather, it's not worth it. You're going to get lots of skips. It's pointless driving around for a whole day and not do a whole day's work in my mind. So therefore, cancel the day, but then turn round and use that day and that time you've got to get on with something productive. So if there's a bit of kit you need to clean, or sort out, or there's a slight problem and you're normally finding it hard to have the time to do that, well, crack on and get it out of the way so you're getting your weekend back, I suppose. Or if you're going to work a Saturday to catch up, well, that's where you sort of like gain that time back in that way. Or there could be stuff that needs to get on with running your business, looking at things, analysing, checking your bank for this, that, and the other, trying to work out your rounds or whatever, anything, just get down into the nitty gritty of it. That's what I do. So I feel like I've still achieved something, even though perhaps I've not earned any money. But then again, you can sit there coming up with your list of people you need to chase up and send out payment reminders, that sort of thing, and you might get some money coming in that way. And the other beauty thing is when you've got automatic payments through Stripe or Go Cardless, it's nice to see that money come in and you haven't been out working, for example. And don't do what I did. Well, I had to do it. I brought a jacket from TikTok, waterproof jacket, £16. Now, there's no way I was expecting that to work, but I thought if it worked for now, that's the best I could do. So I did do that. And then I think it was in a sale just before Christmas at some point. Must have been a Black Friday sale or whatever they do before Christmas. I brought myself a nice Berghaus waterproof jacket because my other one was like 12 years old and wasn't waterproof anymore. So I've got a nice waterproof jacket. I've got my Buffalo that you probably see me in my videos when I'm working during the winter. I live in that thing. That is absolutely brilliant. So I've got some good gear to get me out working in these weather conditions where it's not nice. And then, like I said, in the summer, we've got T-shirts and then I've got my shorts and I've got rid of me boots to some other footwear to work in, but they're not trainers, but they're like work trainers, if that makes sense. And yeah, all these little things make a big difference. One thing I can tell you about this time of year, with the roads being so wet, is it just seems pointless washing your van every week because as soon as you drive down the road, by the time you got to the first house, it looks like it's been dirty all week again. But at least my van's all cleaned out anyway. Looking after me pole as well, because when it's wet, it's picking up a lot of grit off the ground, isn't it? But then again, in the summer, you find with all the dry dirt and grit on the floor, that can be a problem as well. But definitely the winter's worse. And then we have cloths in the van so that when we reel in, we use that to hold and dry the reel. But what you find is sometimes that's going through some muddy and picking up lots of mud as well. So the cloths needs changing daily. Whereas in the summer, they last a few days, almost a week. So there's little things like that. Lots of different things we're affected through the weather, really, isn't there? But you adapt and learn as you go. And just if you can't work due to weather reasons, it's always going to happen at a time when you need to. And sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. Take it on the chin. And like I said, as long as you turn around and still feel productive in other ways, it's not so bad. It's all right when it's a day or two. But like I said, when you have a storm for about 3, 4, 5 days, it's just a killer because that's like a week's worth of work you've lost again, isn't it? But it's all right if you've got money in the bank. And I suppose this comes around to pricing. It just shows you've got to get your pricing right to take all these things into account because you've got to have a buffer. Otherwise, it's going to bite you. And it's horrible because when you seem to have money in the bank, there's always something that gets rid of it. Then you've got to start again. Well, at least that's what I find. But still here, still going. Another year, window cleaning done. And that's a good thing, innit? It hasn't stopped me. Just wish I was better off, but that's life. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I can't think of anything else to talk about here in regards with weather. Be interesting to hear your thoughts, or what do you do? What are your cutoffs when it comes to, for example, gusts of winds? Do you have a mile per hour limit? Are you like black and white, or do you blur the rules depending on whether it's wet and dry, like I've mentioned? What about when it's too cold, too hot? What do you do to negate all that stuff? Another good thing we have, last 2 years I put in is a cool box. Put ice packs in there so we can have cool water because it is absolutely lovely having nice cold water rather than warm water. You might as well add a tea bag and a bit of milk in it sometimes. So yeah, and grabbing an ice cream when you go for a toilet break. But all these little things, yeah. What do you do? And what about the rain as well? Do you get lots of customers really telling not to bother because of the rain? I know you can educate them, but when it's heavy rain and wind, I think people don't expect you to be out really, but sometimes you have to tell them, I've got no money. But yeah, interesting to see your thoughts. Put them in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Put them in the comments or however you do it on iTunes and Spotify. Thanks for following along. I'll keep these going. Like I said, this is episode 6. Next week will be episode 7. That'll be a bit of a milestone for me because apparently most podcasts that are out there don't even get to 7 episodes. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. And if you've got any subjects you want to put me down, put them in the comments and I'll come round to them. And yeah, make this your podcast. Anyway, have a good week. Hope you're good. Cleaning out there on the glass. Hopefully the weather's on your side at least anyway. And it won't be long till we're moaning that it's too hot. And a lot of us will be trying to burn off some weight so we can get back into those shorts. Anyway, thanks for listening. Have a good week.